if that be all right, I know
Yeah, I know
that
you have to go to committee, right?
we're working on this tax agreement, my
Go ahead.
Republican
Ask your
colleague.
question.
Thanks so much. I have just one, and I want to thank the chairman and Senator Heinrich on this. Mr. Secretary, it's been a pleasure to work with you and Mr. Turk. We've seen the major automakers already making changes in their supply chains to ensure vehicles qualify for the new clean vehicle tax credit. And this, in our view, is in response to the requirements, the supply chain requirements that were in the IRA. My one question to you is, can you tell us how Treasury's rules help to implement the statute's provision here so that we can make sure that the new clean vehicle tax credit helps us with supply chains, helps us with climate, helps us with jobs? How do the rules you're working on help to implement the statute that we wrote? Secretary,
Well, Senator, thank you for the question, and thank you for your leadership in drafting the IRA. What we've seen in our conversations with automakers is that they feel as if the standards set in the IRA in terms of clean vehicles and the 30D standards are tough. And that's why we've seen, as we introduced the foreign entity of concern rule, that it went from over 40 cars being eligible to only 13. What the automakers have also said is that they are achievable standards that we can use to make sure that they're domesticating the supply chain. And by making sure that any car that receives the 30D credit has to be built here in North America, it means that it is going to be built within our economy. We're building supply chain here. And in addition to 30D, 45X, and a number of the other credits will mean that not only are the cars built here, but the batteries will also be built here in America using American innovation and ingenuity. American workers, American manufacturing has led the world for decades. And because of the way that you designed the IRA, it's put us in a position where we create incentives both for American consumers who want to buy EVs, but also for American manufacturers, including auto manufacturers, to be able to compete with China by lowering the cost of the supply chain that they will need to do so. Over the last year alone, these automakers have talked about the work that they're doing to bring that supply chain back to America and to our FTA partners. And because of the work that we're doing alongside our colleagues at the Department of Energy, we're making that easier every day.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We'll get back to regular schedule here. Mr. Audiemo, I'm deeply concerned that Treasury is allowing taxpayers to claim Inflation Reduction Act credits in the current tax year based on proposed rules and not final rules. I cannot think of any other federal agency that operates this way, and here's my comparison. If FERC proposes a policy change, or EPA proposes a regulation, or DOE proposes a grant program, only once the proposal is final does it actually come into effect. So do you agree it's abnormal to rely on proposed rules for programs that are already in effect, like the IRA tax credits? And is Treasury using proposed rules trying to avoid legal challenges?
Senator, thank you for the question. And no, it is normal for us to do that when it comes to the tax code. You're sitting next to Chairman Wyden, who works with us on a regular basis on tax issues that are similar to this one. And outside of the IRA context, whenever you have a tax policy, we often will propose rules and allow taxpayers to rely on those proposed rules while we collect comments and finalize those rules. Our
What
goal
period-
being that we want to
I hate
lay out
to
proposals.
interrupt you, sir. If you can just, what period of time do you concern proposed rules before acting on permanent rules? Right now, you're proposing till 2027 and beyond. We've never seen anything like this.
So we have a proposed rule out there for comment. And what we've asked for is that stakeholders like you provide us with comments that will then put us in a position to revise and provide a final rule as soon as possible. Our goal is to try and finalize these rules as quickly as possible to give taxpayers as much certainty as possible.
You can understand our concerns on this because basically you all filed for 2026, 2027, taking 2 or 3 years to get input before you make a final rule is going to put an awful lot of people who are making investments in our country in jeopardy if they based it off the way the bill was written. That's my concern, sir, and we've talked about this. We can go into more detail if we can. I want to go to Mr. Turk right now. Some U.S. automakers and battery producers have said there's just no way that we can make these EV batteries without China. And that makes no sense to me at all, since most of these technology was started here in America. and then taken to China and other foreign countries of concern. So do you agree with some automakers that that's okay for U.S. tax credits to benefit these countries of concern such as China, whether it be Russia, whether it be North Korea, whether it be Iran, and others such as that we have no values with?
So I think we can absolutely do it without China. Just to give you a few numbers, we talked about the fact that graphite right now, the processing is 100% in China. Just from the investments, the tools that you've given us so far that we've used, right now our projections that 16% of the graphite that will be used in passenger vehicles in the U.S. by 2027 will be U.S. That goes from basically 0 to 16% just with the investments we made so far. And we've got a lot more grant funding. We've got a lot more loan authority.
Why do you think that basically the numbers were cut in half, that these numbers were cut in half then? Why do you think they basically defied the law? Are you trying to accelerate because you think we can't do it quick enough, so you have to decelerate this to 20%?
Well, I think the way we look at it, and we work incredibly closely with our Treasury colleagues and other colleagues across the interagency, it's the tax incentives, but it's also the grant funding through the bipartisan infrastructure legislation. It's our loan program. The Defense Department has some funding as well to help on critical minerals that they're using for a graphite mine in Alaska right now. So it's all of these tools together, trying to get our percentages up as quickly as we can, understanding, as you mentioned in your opening and I mentioned in my opening, we have not had an active policy or tools in our tool belt to do anything about this.
Say one more thing
so
on
many
this
years.
if I can. My problem is this: the people that are making the investments, thinking this is what they have to hit, knowing now where the foreign competition come in unfairly and undercut them. That's where I think the lawsuits are going to come in, and it's going to be horrendous for us to be able to fight this and be uncertainty. Let me switch to something else also. I've spoken to you both about numerous times the concerns about misclassification of certain battery component production as critical minerals processing rather than manufacturing. The difference between processing, sourcing and processing versus manufacturing is very clear. We wrote it very clear in the bill. But, so my question would be, why is there a discrepancy between the two definitions? Whoever wants to speak up.
Sorry, but I think what we did was we worked very closely with our partners at DOE to develop the definition, and we borrowed in large part from the definition that was in the bipartisan infrastructure law for several reasons. One being that we wanted to provide as much certainty as
We wrote in,
possible.
I'm so sorry, Secretary. We wrote specifically what the definition was in the bill, not the bipartisan infrastructure bill, in the IRA. And you all went back and used the language to basically, I guess, to solidify what you wanted to do or how you wanted to do it, or how you wanted to basically let them morph together, because sourcing and processing is a complete different than basically manufacturing, okay? And the manufacturing is supposed to be in North America. $37.50 for one, $37.50 for the other. That's the problem.
This is our view. So, Senator, as I mentioned earlier, what we've done is we put out a proposed rule. Our goal is to take feedback from you and other stakeholders on that proposed rule. What I'm trying to explain is why we went with the proposal that we did, and our goal was to provide certainty to the marketplace by trying to make sure that we provided them with one definition of processing and manufacturing that was similar. We worked closely with our partners at DOE to develop that, but we look forward to taking your feedback and feedback from other stakeholders as we move from a proposed rule to a final rule.
We're going to continue to work together to try to get back to the whole process and the definition written into the bill and not being basically interpreted differently. With that, we'll turn to Senator Barrasso.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Mr. Audiello,